people right now are not just looking for tourist attractions or postcards when they travel. They want to understand how the local people live, how they work, what they eat. They want to be engaged with the local daily life when they travel. This trend has some positive implications on the U.S. China relations as well, because the human connections are much stronger, powerful than the political headlines, especially at the time of uncertainty today.
What role does the travel industry play in U.S. China relations?
I consider the travel industry as both an economic sector and also a bridge for culture exchange. In terms of the economic sector role, it's important to remember that travel is considered as a service export. And historically, it has been a field where the US has a trade surplus with China. To give you a few numbers, in 2019, we saw 3 million Chinese visitors in the US with 10,000 spending per trip. This number is much higher than the global average number, actually. So after pandemic, even though the market is still recovering, we can still see that the Chinese travelers contributed over 20 billion to the US economy last year. So the point I want to make here is the US has a trade deficit in goods. However, it has a trade surplus in service, which is driven largely by travel, which means when Chinese travelers visit the US, they're not just visiting, they're supporting supply chain of airlines, hotels, car rental companies, etc. So I think that's a role travel industry plays economically. And on the other hand, I think travel also plays a unique role culturally. For example, when people visit each other's homes, eat their food, and see the daily lives of the other peoples, it creates a ground level empathy that public policy cannot replicate. The face-to-face engagement and the human connection really create a bridge for culture exchange and communication. So with that, I think the travel industry is not just a sector of economy, it's a bridge for culture exchange, mutual respect, and communication. We're not just moving people, we're moving capital, we're moving ideas, we're moving culture between the two countries.
How has social media influenced the way people travel?
In the past, the information was pretty much one-dimensional. So people got information from the traditional media or the tour guide books. But today, social media has really changed the game. People got information from social media mostly because social media provide richer, filtered local travel information. For example, the most popular social media platforms in the US would be like YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, etc. And in China, Xiaohongshu is very popular, and the Douyin, which is the Chinese version of TikTok, is also popular too. So that's the rise of the social media and how the way people search information changed. As a result of this, the way people travel actually changed too, from a very traditional check the box sightseeing way towards a more cultural exploration. I think people right now are not just looking for tourist attractions or postcards when they travel. They want to understand how the local people live, how they work, what they eat. So they want to be engaged with the local daily life when they travel. This trend has some positive implications on the U.S. China relations as well, because the human connections are much stronger, powerful than the political headlines, especially at the time of uncertainty today. So hopefully we'll see more of that in the future.
How is the current geopolitical environment affecting travel between the US and China?
The current geopolitical environment did have an impact on the travel industry. The impact is majorly related to the operational and the logistics friction. For example, the flight capacity and the visa processing times are the major concerns. The flight capacity is still recovering from the pre-pandemic, and the visa processing time is much longer than before. People still want to travel, abroad. The demand is still there. On the supply side, however, the operational friction really made people cautious because they have to do the extra work. That's something happening in the industry right now. But the good news here is things have been getting better and better over time. That's something we can, expect in the future. So back to the U.S. China relations, the underlying human curiosity and the desire to travel has not changed at all. I think the current climate has made the face-to-face engagement even more valuable than before. So I think the travel industry plays an even more critical role today because it provides opportunities that clear communication and mutual respect can actually happen.
How does the way people from the US and China travel differ?
The desire to travel, the curiosity for different cultures are universal. So basically, the human nature shares the same ground. And on the business side, the similarities are like both markets have reached a high level, very high level of digital maturity. As the online travel industry today is a digital business. So even the top players in both markets share very similar business models and very similar operational structures as well. In terms of the differences, I think the major differences lies in the consumer behavior between the two markets. For example, in China, the super app mindset versus the US specialized app mindset. So in China, people have the mindset of using one super app to solve all the problems, to do multiple tasks. For example, people use WeChat to chat, to use as a social media to pay their utilities, to purchase stuff, to make an appointment with their doctors. So they basically do everything at WeChat. In traveling industry, the same story. People tend to do everything in one super app. However, in the US, I think the specialized apps are more popular compared to China. For example, people use Google for search, use Expedia for booking. They also use individual airline or hotels apps for booking too. So I think that's something different between the two markets. Besides the super app or specialized app, another thing I noticed is the payment behavior. In China, the mobile payment are the baseline. Wherever you go, whatever you do, you use WeChat Pay or Alipay for everything. So that's a baseline. However, in the US, I think it's more like a mix of credit card and mobile payments today. So with that being said, I think if you are based in the US and want to travel to China, just a friendly reminder that you need to be aware of the digital ecosystem is different. And just make sure to be proactive about the local apps. And if you are based in China and want to travel to the US, the same story, familiar yourself with the US apps, also important for the trips.
What advice do you have for people looking to work in the travel industry?
My biggest piece of advice would be stay ahead of the curve on technology, particularly AI, because, over the past 20 years, we have seen how technology transformed the travel industry from a very traditional service into a highly connected digital business. Now the question is, what's going to happen in the next 10 years? I believe AI will be the primary driver for the next transformation and the opportunities will be massive. We're seeing this trend in two ways. First, on the supply side, I think AI is going to fundamentally change how the suppliers operate, including airlines, hotels, car rental companies. From predictive maintenance to real-time inventory management, I think AI will enable the suppliers to optimize their operations and reach a new level of productivity. And on the consumer side, I believe the trend is already clear. More and more people use AI to search travel information and plan their trips already today. So if you are interested in career in travel industry, my advice would be stay ahead of the curve, catch up with the latest technology, and find where those new opportunities are. I think the opportunities eventually belong to those who can bridge the gap between technology and the high-touch human experiences of travel. So with that being said, good luck.